Aquarius. Have you ever noticed this strange pattern in your life? The moment you finally stop explaining yourself, stop chasing, stop trying to be understood, that's when the person who once took you for granted suddenly starts missing you. Not when you begged, not when you stayed, but when you quietly walked away. And what's even more surprising is that you didn't leave to punish them. You left because you were tired of abandoning yourself. If that feels familiar, type "I'm ready" in the comments. Because what's coming next is not about them returning. It's about discovering why your absence changed everything. And once you hear this story, you'll never see your past the same way again. And maybe what hurts the most, Aquarius, is not the leaving itself. It's the moment you realize how long you stayed after your heart had already gone quiet. You didn't make a scene. You didn't announce your departure. You simply started answering slower, listening less, needing less. Not because you stopped caring, but because something inside you finally whispered, "I can't keep carrying this alone." Aquarius energy doesn't leave dramatically. It leaves internally first, in silence. In subtle shifts no one notices until you're already gone. And that's the part people never see. They see the distance, but not the 1,000 small disappointments that built it. They see the calm, but not the nights you lay awake wondering why love felt heavier than loneliness. You didn't wake up one day and choose to leave. You woke up one day and realized you had already been emotionally homeless for a while. Still showing up, still caring, but no longer being met where you stood. So, you stopped explaining yourself, not out of pride, out of exhaustion. There's a very specific kind of tired that only Aquarius understands. Not the kind that comes from doing too much, but the kind that comes from being too understanding for too long. Always seeing both sides, always giving space, always making excuses for emotional absence, until one day you just don't. And here's something no one tells you about quiet exits. They confuse people more than dramatic ones, because without arguments, without blame, without closure, the other person is left with nothing to fight against except their own thoughts. That's when the memories start changing shape. That's when the past starts feeling warmer. That's when absence becomes louder than presence ever was. Have you ever noticed that, Aquarius? How your silence speaks louder than your words ever did? Not because you want to be missed, but because your energy was the emotional oxygen in the room. And now it's gone. You were the one who checked in, the one who felt first, the one who tried to understand feelings no one else wanted to name. So, when you finally stepped back, everything felt emptier. Not dramatic, just hollow. And the strangest part? You didn't feel relieved at first. You felt numb. Because when you spend so long being emotionally available for someone else, you forget what it feels like to belong to yourself again. So, you didn't run into freedom. You walked into unfamiliar territory. Quiet evenings, long thoughts, a different kind of loneliness. But this time, it wasn't about being unseen. It was about learning how to see yourself again. There's something deeply cosmic about that, Aquarius. Your sign isn't built for attachment to comfort. It's built for growth through detachment, for realizing that love should expand you, not shrink you. And maybe that's why your leaving feels different. It doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like evolution, like you outgrew a version of yourself that thought love meant endurance. So, here's a question only you can answer. And maybe you've never let yourself ask it honestly before. Did you leave because they changed, or because you finally did? Because sometimes the real ending isn't the goodbye. It's the moment you stop negotiating your worth. And once that happens, the story doesn't actually end. It just starts revealing who was really listening to your silence all along. And what they never understood, Aquarius, is that your loyalty was never loud. It lived in small, invisible gestures, the way you remember details no one else noticed, the way you stayed curious about their inner world, the way you kept choosing connection, even on days you felt unseen. So when you finally became quiet, it didn't feel like an ending to them. It felt temporary, like a pause, like something that would reset itself. Because in their memory, you were always the one who returned. Not because you were weak, but because you believed in repairing more than replacing. You believed in growth over escape, in understanding over pride. You had this rare Aquarius way of loving. You didn't cling, you gave space. You trusted people to meet you halfway. And when they didn't, you kept walking the distance alone. That's why your silence confused them. They had never seen you choose yourself without explanation. They had never seen you stop reaching back. So they told themselves a comforting story, that you were just tired, that you needed time, that eventually you would soften again, because you always did. But something had shifted quietly inside you. Not anger, not bitterness, just clarity. You finally saw the pattern, how effort was expected from you, but not mirrored, how your emotional presence became a guarantee, not a gift. And that realization doesn't explode, it settles. It feels like a gentle internal click, a moment where your heart says, I love them, but I also love myself. That's the moment people mistake for distance. But it's actually alignment. You weren't withdrawing from them. You were returning to yourself. And here's the part that feels almost poetic. The more you stopped initiating, the more the space between you started echoing. They began noticing the absence of your energy, the lack of check-ins, the missing emotional anchor. Not in a dramatic way, in a subtle way. Like walking into a familiar room and sensing something off, but not knowing what. They felt the difference in how the air moved, how conversations felt flatter, how connection felt less alive. Because Aquarius doesn't just participate in relationships. You shape the emotional atmosphere. And once that atmosphere disappears, everything feels colder, even if nothing obvious changed. So they waited, not consciously, but instinctively. They kept expecting your name to appear on their phone, kept assuming you would reach out first, kept living in the comfort of your past availability. Until one day, it started to feel real, not like distance, like absence. And absence has a way of teaching lessons that presence never could. It forces people to reflect instead of react, to remember instead of assume, to question instead of take for granted. You didn't have to say anything. Your consistency used to speak for you. Now your silence does. And maybe the most powerful thing you ever did was not announcing your departure. You simply stopped carrying what was never equally held. So, let me ask you something gently, Aquarius. Not as a challenge, but as a mirror. When you think about that relationship now, do you miss the person? Or do you miss the version of yourself that kept believing things would change? Because those two feelings feel similar, but they lead to very different futures. And somewhere between those questions, your energy is shifting again. Not toward the past, not toward regret, but toward a version of you that no longer needs to be chosen to feel real. And strangely enough, that is exactly the moment people start realizing what they lost. And somewhere in the quiet that followed your absence, Aquarius, a different kind of feeling started growing inside them. Not sadness at first, not even regret. It began as curiosity, small, almost innocent, like checking old messages without knowing why, like replaying conversations in their mind, searching for something they missed. At first, they told themselves nothing had really changed, that life was simply moving forward, that new faces, new energy, new attention would fill the space easily. But comparison has a strange way of arriving uninvited. It slips into ordinary moments, a laugh that feels a little flatter, a conversation that stays on the surface, a connection that feels pleasant, but not familiar. And suddenly, without meaning to, they remember how you listened. Not just to words, but to pauses. Not just to stories. All but to what was never said. They start noticing the difference between being wanted and being understood. Between being chosen for comfort and being chosen for who they truly are. And that is where the quiet guilt begins. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a soft, uncomfortable awareness that something rare was lost. Because you never loved in a predictable way. You didn't mirror their needs. You expanded them. You asked questions no one else asked. You held space for emotions people usually avoid. You stayed present in moments that made others uncomfortable. So when they meet someone new, the absence of that depth feels subtle, but undeniable. They might enjoy the attention. They might appreciate the affection. But something feels missing in the atmosphere. It is like stepping into a beautifully decorated room and realizing there is no music playing. Everything looks right, but it does not move the same. And that is when memory becomes emotional, not nostalgic. They do not miss the past. They miss how they felt around you. They miss feeling seen without performing. They miss being understood without explaining. They miss being chosen in ways that felt personal, not convenient. The guilt does not come from what they did wrong. It comes from what they now realize you gave. And here is the part most people never admit to themselves. It is easier to replace a person than to replace how that person made you feel about yourself. They can find another body, another voice, another presence, but they cannot easily recreate the emotional mirror you were, the way you reflected their best self back to them, the way you believed in their potential even when they doubted it. So they begin carrying you quietly, not in conversation, not in confession, but in comparison. Every new connection becomes a subtle question. Why does this feel easier but less real? Why does this feel safer but less alive? And slowly, without planning to, they start realizing that the absence of your energy is not something they can explain away. It is something they have to feel. And guilt does not scream, it whispers. It asks them things late at night, when no one is watching, when distractions are gone. Was I careless with something meaningful? Did I assume what was rare was replaceable? Did I mistake emotional consistency for permanence? These are not questions that seek answers. They seek understanding. And understanding always arrives after loss. So, let me ask you something gently, Aquarius. Not for closure, not for validation, but for truth. If they had realized your value earlier, would you still be the same person you are now? Or did losing you also mean losing the version of you they once had access to? Because sometimes the real consequence is not that someone regrets losing you. It is that they meet you again one day and realize they can never be loved by you in the same way again. It happened quietly, almost the way a tide changes when no one is watching. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a subtle shift inside you, like a door closing without a sound. One day you realized you were tired in a different way. Not the kind that sleep could fix, the kind that comes from carrying conversations alone, from translating your own heart into smaller versions so others could feel comfortable. So, you stopped. Not out of anger, not out of pride. You simply placed your energy back where it belonged, inside yourself. And something in the universe adjusted. You began to move lighter through your days. Your thoughts slowed down. Your breath felt deeper. You no longer rehearsed messages in your head. No longer wondered how to explain your feelings in a way that would not scare anyone away. You let silence do what words never could. For an Aquarius, this is not giving up. This is evolution. You are ruled by distance and vision. You see patterns before others feel them. And when you stop chasing, it is not because you do not care. It is because you finally understand that connection cannot be forced into existence. It has to arrive on its own frequency. While you were learning how to be still, they were starting to feel something unfamiliar. Weight. A strange echo where your presence used to be. At first it felt like freedom to them. Space. Relief. But space has a way of turning into absence when no one is filling it with real meaning. They began to notice small things. How no one checked on their dreams the way you did. How conversations stayed on the surface. How being desired is not the same as being understood. And you did not need to know any of this to keep moving forward. There is a quiet power in no longer proving your worth, in letting your absence speak for your boundaries, in realizing that the people meant to walk with you will not need constant reminders of your value. Aquarius energy matures beautifully when it stops explaining itself. You start choosing peace over potential, presence over possibility, depth over fantasy. You become magnetic in a softer way, not because you are trying to attract, but because you are finally aligned with your own rhythm. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful stars are the ones that do not flicker? They simply exist, steady, unapologetic, visible without asking for attention. That is the frequency you are entering now. You are no longer trying to be seen. You are becoming real to yourself. Oh, and ironically, that is when others start to truly feel you. Not because you are chasing their gaze, but because your energy is no longer scattered. It is grounded, it is calm, it is self-contained. And when someone feels that kind of presence, it touches something ancient in them, a memory of being safe, of being chosen without having to perform. This is why the shift feels cosmic, not emotional. It is not about them changing their mind. It is about you changing your center. You stopped orbiting around someone else. You became your own gravity. And here is the gentle question I want to leave resting in your heart tonight. If you no longer have to chase love, what kind of life do you want to build in the space that remains? Because that space is sacred now. It is no longer waiting. It is becoming. There is a strange kind of presence that exists between distance and memory, not close enough to touch, not far enough to forget. You can feel it in the air sometimes, like a soft pressure on the back of your thoughts, as if someone is standing just outside your life, watching the version of you they no longer have access to. They do not reach out, not because they do not want to, but because something inside them knows the moment has shifted. Silence has become safer than honesty, so they stay where they are, observing, collecting fragments of you through small windows, a photo, a laugh, a sentence that reveals you are still becoming, even without them. And you, Aquarius, sense it without needing proof. Your intuition has always been subtle like that. You feel emotional currents the way others feel, weather, a change in tone. Yeah, a pause in energy. A quiet pull that tells you someone is thinking about you from a place they cannot return to. What they are really watching is not your life. It is your independence. They notice how your light no longer waits for their reflection, how your joy is not performative, how your growth feels natural, not reactive. You are no longer building yourself around absence. You are building yourself around truth. From their side, it feels like loss dressed up as curiosity. They wonder if you still think of them when the night gets quiet, if your heart still remembers the shape of their voice, if you ever pause on their name the way they pause on yours. But they do not ask, because asking would mean facing the possibility that you have moved beyond the version of them that once felt essential. And that possibility feels heavier than regret. For you, this phase feels different. There is no urge to prove anything, no hidden desire to be seen. You are not performing healing, you are living it. And living it means you do not check who is watching. You do not look back to measure impact. You simply continue forward, guided by a deeper alignment with yourself. Aquarius souls evolve in quiet revolutions. You change on the inside first. The world only notices later. While they remain suspended between wanting and waiting, you are integrating lessons into wisdom. You are learning how to hold your energy without leaking it, how to love without dissolving, how to exist without needing validation to feel real. And that is what truly scares them. Not that you might find someone else, but that you might find yourself so completely that you no longer need anyone to define your worth. There is something unsettling about watching someone become whole. It forces you to confront what you avoided becoming. So they watch, not to reconnect, but to remember a version of themselves that felt chosen through you. And here is the gentle question drifting through the cosmos tonight. If someone can only witness your growth from a distance, what does that say about the role they were meant to play in your life? Perhaps some souls are not meant to walk beside you, only to recognize you once you have learned how to walk alone. And you, Aquarius, were always meant to lead your own way. It does not arrive like a storm. It arrives like a whisper, so gentle that for a moment you wonder if you imagined it. A familiar name lighting up your screen. A voice from a past season stepping back into the present. Not dramatic, not urgent, just soft enough to slip past your defenses. And somehow, that makes it more powerful. Because real returns never announce themselves. They appear in the quiet spaces of your day, when your guard is down, when you are no longer waiting, when your heart has finally learned how to breathe on its own. Aquarius, this moment feels strange in your body. Not exciting, not painful, just surreal. As if time folded in on itself and brought something unfinished back to your door. They do not come with speeches. They do not bring explanations. They come with a simple question that carries too much history inside it. Are you okay these days? It sounds harmless, but you feel the weight behind it. All the nights they thought about reaching out. All the times they typed your name and erased it. All the moments they realized what they lost, not through absence, but through comparison, through silence, through living without the energy that once made them feel seen. You sense it in the way their words hesitate, in the spaces between their sentences. They are not here to reopen the past. They are here because the past never truly closed inside them. For you, this return does not shake your world. It tests your growth. Once, this message would have undone you. You would have searched for meaning in every word. You would have felt your heart lean forward before your mind could catch up. But now, something is different. You read it slowly, calmly, from a place that no longer needs to be chosen to feel worthy. That is the real shift. They are returning to who you used to be. You are meeting them as who you have become. And that gap matters. You do not feel the urge to impress. You do not feel the need to explain your life. You are simply present, grounded, curious but not attached, open but not available in the old way. Aquarius energy evolves beyond nostalgia. You understand that some connections do not come back to stay. They come back to close loops, to bring clarity where there was confusion, to let both souls see how far they have traveled since the last goodbye. What they are really seeking is not reunion, it is relief. Relief from the question that has followed them quietly for months. What if I had treated them better? What if I had stayed? What if I had chosen differently? And now they are here, not to rewrite the story, but to finally feel the ending. For you, this moment is not about reopening doors. It is about recognizing how strong you have become standing on your own. You can listen without dissolving. You can respond without losing yourself. You can hold space without sacrificing your peace. That is healing in its truest form. So, let the conversation exist. Let the memory breathe. Let the energy pass through without claiming you. And here is the gentle question floating in the background of this return. Are they coming back because they miss you, or because they miss who they were when you loved them? Because only one of those deserves your future. And you, Aquarius, are no longer a chapter in someone else's regret. You are a whole story still unfolding. There is a quiet confidence in you now. Not the kind that needs to be proven, not the kind that speaks loudly. It lives in your breath, in the way you pause before answering, in the way your heart no longer rushes ahead of your mind. This time, you are not waiting for anything to happen. You are simply present, and that presence changes the entire atmosphere. You notice it in the way the conversation feels different, slower, softer. They choose their words carefully, as if every sentence might tip something fragile. You can sense their nervousness through the screen, through their voice, through the subtle spaces between their thoughts. Once, you were the one measuring every tone, every delay, every shift in energy. Now, you are just listening, calm, grounded, almost surprised by how little effort it takes to stay centered. Aquarius. And this is what emotional gravity feels like when it finally belongs to you. They feel it too, even if they cannot name it. They are suddenly aware of what they could lose. Not in theory, not in memory, but in real time. They realize that your life no longer revolves around their presence, that your happiness does not depend on their validation, that your world has grown larger than the space they used to occupy. And that realization unsettles them, not because they want control, but because they sense the shift, the subtle rebalancing of energy, the moment where they are no longer the reference point of your emotional universe. You are no longer trying to be understood. You are simply being yourself. That is the power they did not expect. They speak with caution now, afraid to trigger your distance, afraid to misstep, afraid to remind you of a version of them that you have already outgrown. They are the ones reading between lines, the ones replaying conversations, the ones hoping for reassurance without asking for it. You feel this inversion without needing to analyze it. It is instinctive, a quiet knowing in your chest, the sense that something fundamental has changed and cannot be undone. You are no longer emotionally available in the old way. You are available in a new one, from a place of choice, not need, from stability, not longing. That difference is everything. For an Aquarius soul, this is a rare and sacred threshold. You are still open, still kind, still capable of deep connection. But you are no longer willing to abandon yourself to maintain a bond. You have learned the art of staying whole. So now when they speak, you hear them without urgency. When they hesitate, you do not rush to fill the silence. When they express fear, you do not absorb it as your responsibility. You simply hold the moment. And in that stillness, the true balance reveals itself. They are aware of what they once took for granted. You are aware of what you once overgave. Both of you are standing in a new emotional landscape shaped by time, distance, and growth. But only one of you feels at home there. Here is the gentle question floating through this shift. Are you listening to them from love or from habit? Because the difference determines whether this connection evolves or dissolves with grace. And as the energy continues to recalibrate, you begin to sense something even deeper. The power you now carry is not over them. It is over yourself. And that kind of power does not demand anything. It simply waits and observes and chooses. There is a quiet smile forming inside you now, not on your lips, but somewhere deeper, in the place where fear used to live, in the space where you once whispered to yourself that you could not survive without them. You remember that version of you, the one who believed love was oxygen, the one who thought absence meant collapse, the one who confused attachment with destiny. And yet, here you are, breathing, functioning, growing. Not because it stopped hurting, but because you finally learned how to hold pain without letting it define your future. Aquarius, this is the part no one tells you about healing. It does not arrive as a dramatic breakthrough. It arrives as a subtle shift. One day you wake up and realize your thoughts are no longer orbiting around someone else. Your energy is no longer leaking into memories. Your heart feels quieter, but also stronger. You did not replace them. You replaced the version of yourself who needed to be chosen. That is the real revolution. There is something cosmic about this moment, a sense that the universe was never testing your ability to hold on. It was testing your ability to let go without losing your capacity to love, to remain open without remaining dependent, to walk forward without dragging the past behind you. And you passed, not with perfection, but with courage. The strange thing is, this is exactly when they begin to feel the echo of your absence. Not the physical absence, but the emotional one. The part of you that no longer waits. The part of you that no longer hopes. The part of you that no longer needs confirmation to feel real. They return because they sense the shift. Because something in your energy feels complete. Because your life no longer looks like a question mark. You are no longer proving anything to them. You are proving something to yourself. That you are not defined by who stays. That your worth does not fluctuate with attention. That your heart is not a place to hide from loneliness. It is a place to meet yourself honestly. This is what makes your presence magnetic now. Not your pain, not your longing, but your self-possession. The way you occupy your own life fully. The way you speak from choice instead of fear. The way your silence feels peaceful instead of empty. They feel the difference immediately. But the deeper shift is internal. You begin to trust yourself, not in a loud way, in a grounded way. You stop asking whether love will survive. You start asking whether it aligns, whether it nourishes, whether it respects the person you have become. Here is the question that gently hovers in this moment. Are you open to their return because you miss them, or because you finally trust yourself to walk away again if needed? Because that answer changes everything. This is not about winning, not about reversal, not about validation. This is about integration, the merging of who you were with who you are becoming. The moment where you realize you do not need to erase the past to step into the future. You carry it with you, but it no longer carries you. And that is why the universe feels different now. Lighter, wider, more responsive. You are no longer asking life to choose you. You are choosing yourself. And somehow, without trying, that is exactly what makes the world begin to choose you back. And as this message slowly fades into the background of your night, I want you to remember something gentle, Aquarius. You were never behind. You were never late. You were never losing time. You were becoming. Every silence you survived, every ending you outgrew, every moment you chose yourself instead of shrinking to stay loved, all of it was shaping the version of you that now stands here, calm, aware, unafraid to walk alone, yet still open enough to love again without abandoning your soul. That is not distance. That is evolution. If someone returns now, it is not to save you. It is to meet you. And if no one returns, it is not a punishment. It is proof that your life has expanded beyond what once contained it. Either way, you are safe. You are aligned. You are exactly where your spirit needed to be. So, tonight, do not ask the universe for signs. Be the sign. Let your peace be the message. Let your self-trust be the magnet. And if this story felt like it was speaking directly to you, if something in your chest quietly said, yes, that is me, leave a small comment below. Just one word, still here. Because this is not just a channel, it is a constellation of souls learning how to love without losing themselves. Subscribe if you want to stay connected to this frequency, not for me. For the future version of you that is still unfolding. The journey does not end here, Aquarius. The next message is already forming, and it will find you exactly when you are ready to hear it.